As well as the amazing design of this hotel, the fantastic weather and the relaxation, it also has some amazing restaurants, some fine dining. We've got lots of different restaurants here. You can see there's 1, 2, 3, 4, there's 12 restaurants showing there, which is amazing. Not how long you're coming for, but it's difficult to get through 12 restaurants. Have a look at the bars. We've also got 9 different bars, all of which look pretty good. I think one of the acid tests for how good a hotel is how good the breakfast is. So let's go and check out the breakfast here, which is on this terrace, which overlooks this fantastic view of the fountain, and that goes all the way down to the beach. So you've got a great vista here to sit outside on this terrace. Let's go and have a look at the food itself. So here we are at the buffet breakfast, and we've got lots of different stations here with different foods. So this one is the fruit and yogurts. So you can see got a good selection here of lots of different types of yogurt. So there's natural yogurt, flavoured yogurt, quark, there's a fruit salad. Over on this side, we've got some cereals, the usual sort of things that you would have for the kids. Lots of different types of stuff that you can put into your yogurt, such raisins and nuts and seeds. Lots of different superfoods here that we'll be able to get into, figs, apricots, and then we've got a selection of fruit. This is towards the end of the service, which is why it's not particularly full. So we've got grapes, melon, pineapple, all sorts of different things. They did have strawberries here earlier, but they've gone. And then you've got a selection of peaches that you can take off to the beach with you. We then also have a live cooking omelette station, or any eggs you like. Then we have some more fruits here you can take away. Some salad, if you're into salad for breakfast. Got some hot foods, bacon, mixed veg, sausages, eggs, boiled eggs in here, porridge, into that sort of things, condiments to go with that. And then we've got the continental food, so got some cheese, tomatoes, some fish, if you like fish for breakfast, lots of different types of cheese, great selection of cheese here. Some meats, so this is very European to have sort of meat and cheese for breakfast. Some condiments that you might want to have with that. We've also got one of these lovely honeycombs. So this is an actual honeycomb that bees would have made. So that's quite posh. You've got one of these fun sticks that you can use to drizzle your honey over your cereal or your bread or whatever you're having. And we've got some actual honey in jars. And then we've got a selection of pastries here as well. So really good selection, actually. There's some really interesting stuff here. And this changes on a daily basis. So it's different things every single day. Selection of breads. This is a traditional dish from Portugal, which are nata, very nice. I had one of those earlier, they are very nice. Some bread, and if you want to do some toast, you can drop it into the toaster. So that is the selection for breakfast, absolutely first class. I would say this hotel, one of the best I've been to for breakfast, really good. Building behind me with this dome on the top, you can see here, it's almost like a hat for me, has 3 of those restaurants. So let's go and take a look inside. Now I'm actually between services here, so this is between breakfast and lunch. So there's not going to be anybody in there, so hopefully I'll be able to go in and walk around without upsetting anybody. So this is the entrance to these 3 restaurants. It really does feel very upmarket. This feels like a high-end dining area. This is actually the bar. I came here last night and had some really cool music, some nice lighting, really fun, key place to hang out. You can see here, actually, they've got a really amazing selection of cigars. So if you're a cigar lover, then this could be the place for you. There's really a lot of choice. You've got a whole cabinet full of cigars there. But we come through this main area. This is the reception desk, and we'll have a poke into these 3 restaurants. So this restaurant is the Japanese restaurant. I actually ate here last night. You can see some food here that I had yesterday, but this really cool chilled place, and there is an outdoors area outside as well. So if we go through here, you can see there's a terrace, so you can have al fresco dining if you like out there at night and see the ocean whilst you're eating your Japanese food. Some really nice decor in here. Very, very cool place to be. It is quite expensive, not surprisingly, but might be worth it, you know, if you're coming on a really extravagant holiday. And this is the Atlantico. So that place was called Mizu Teppanyaki. Have a look at this one, Atlantico, which is mostly fish. Probably doesn't look that much at night, so just a relatively basic restaurant. Again, we've got outdoor dining here, so there's lots of al fresco portions. quite a good feature. They've got mirrors on the wall, which always is good because it makes it look bigger. And through there, you've got another space. But yeah, you can have al fresco, overlooks the pool that we looked at earlier, the infinity pool. So just wander out here, you can see that pool in all of its glory again. And there's the beach down the bottom. But you can see this really, really cool building. So this is the fish restaurant. Again, fine dining, not going to be cheap. And lots of really nice things hanging from the ceiling here. Very nicely done. This is a high-end restaurant for any country in the world. Anywhere you go, this would be classified as something really good. It's in the Michelin Guide, you can see here. It's in Michelin 25 at Lantico, as is the Aladdin Grill, which is an international cuisine. This is a bit more sort of Moroccan feel, a bit more Moorish in here. Really very cool, very nice, really lovely. Some great stained glass windows. It's in a circle, so always makes it feel a bit more private. Got these lovely cushions and terrines behind. Yeah, what a cool place, what a lovely... I haven't eaten here yet, I will do. And we've got the kitchen in the centre, which is always cool, so you can see all of the chefs will be preparing everything here, so everything's on display, nothing to hide. Amazing, just really an amazing location. I would imagine it's not very cheap. It's going to cost a lot of money. These are going to be put out later, I think. But just wanted to give you a quick tour of these restaurants, just to give you a flavour. And this actually isn't even the best restaurant on site, which is the Ocean, which has 2 Michelin stars.
40% of alcohol in this grappa. And if you don't know, the grappa is not meant to melt the cheese. The grappa is meant to flavorize it. So it will definitely taste like grappa. And it will give it a difference. It will not taste only like pecorino. So do you know why this cheese is called pecorino? It's called pecorino because it comes from the Italian word pecora, which means sheep. Other than that, the pasta you're having is actually a love story. So there was a cook in Italy that fell in love with a lady called Mafalda, and of course she was a princess, so a cook and a princess. So he found a subtle way to declare his love, which was name a pasta after her. Her name was Mafalda. He named the pasta Mafalda, and he shaped the pasta with her hair. Wait. And as you can see, he did not melt the cheese because what melts our cheese will be the pasta itself. Apresenta a senhora o rigatoni, sim, o rigatoni põe na senhora mais velha e já faço o teste.
Hi, I've come to Ocean in Portugal, which is reportedly the best restaurant in the whole of the country. This restaurant has 2 Michelin stars, and there are only 8 restaurants in the whole of Portugal that have 2 Michelin stars. These guys have had it since 2011, and the front of house have just received the award for the best front of house, the best service out of everywhere in the whole of the country. So let's go and check out what it's all about. When you come, if you're not staying at the hotel, you have to come here to this drop-off area where they've got a rather lovely sort of fountain. Oh, there's a duck in there, look. There's a duck quacking. How quaint. But this is the entrance that you come through. So let's go and take a look at the actual entrance to the restaurant itself before we dive in and see what the food is on offer. But in here, we should be able to see the 2 Michelin stars on display. So as we come in, you can see that we've got the Michelin sign here and we've got 2 stars, and they are incredibly difficult to get. So let's see what's all going on in the restaurant itself. So this is the view from inside the restaurant. And as you can see, they have full floor-to-ceiling glass windows overlooking the ocean, which is very nice. That's why it's called the Ocean Restaurant. And everybody is spaced quite far apart, which is great when you get to the restaurant. Now, this is the most amazing thing about this restaurant, that it has a set menu. You don't get a choice. You get given what you're given. And there are 15 courses on this tasting menu. Now, I've been to a lot of different tasting menus, and I've never had one with 15 courses. That is a lot of food for anybody to get through. And as you can see, there is a wide variety of things on this menu. The first thing that was up that we served was codfish, and you can see that the presentation is out of this world. The codfish came in these amazing balloon presentations, just incredible. And the food itself, as you can see, is relatively small. It's just a bite-sized piece of cod, but there are so many different things that have gone into making this. Now, before you get every single course, the waiters come over and explain everything to you in graphic detail, how it's been made and what's in there. And this was 3 different courses together. The first one was a crab and apple dish, and you can see that it's served in this special metal-shaped crab. This, again, is a bite-sized piece, but so rich and really, really flavoursome. After that, we had a corn out, which is basically made of chorizo corn and bell peppers. Can't really describe how it's been made. And then the third thing was huli huli chicken, which was inspired by the chef's trip to Hawaii. And that was smoked tomato barbecue chicken and piri piri. And you can see here, it's just amazing presentation. You've got these little wafer thing shapes in the shape of a chicken bone with something in the middle. So you're told which order to eat these in, and it is incredible in terms of the flavours. Next up was time to clean our hands, and as you would imagine, this was done in quite a posh way as well, quite ceremonial. After that, we were given a maple syrup dish with geranium and lettuce, and once again, you can't really work out what any of this stuff is. It just looks incredible. And then we had something sprinkled on top that was a little bit like a savoury type of meringue, but yeah, just incredible. Very difficult to describe what the flavours are like, just really amazing. So hopefully getting a flavour as to what this place is like just by looking at the food. Next up was some bread, but not just any old bread, homemade sourdough bread. And in Portugal, a common thing to get when you're having bread is butter and olive oil. It's served in all the restaurants. But just to make it a little bit more fancy here, what the chef had done is made the butter and the olive oil into 2 sardine shapes, because sardines is one of the biggest meals in Portugal and came in this lovely little can. And we were also served with a little bit of anchovy butter, which came on this quite cute presentation. So a sort of throwback to the old days of Portugal. But once again, amazing presentation, and it tasted great. But the problem was that this bread, I ate 2 pieces of bread, which was probably a mistake. But when you're having 15 courses, don't load up on bread, even if it's really tasty. But unfortunately, I did. And you can see here that I'll pick up the anchovy butter. It was made like a cork, so really clever that it looks like a cork out of a wine bottle, but obviously it's not. It's just made of butter. So if I was to squeeze that really hard with my fingers, it would break. But it just gives you a flavour as to the artistry involved. This is really not just food. The presentation is a really big part of it. Next up was the restaurant's signature dish, oyster. But this wasn't just any oyster. This was an oyster that had been broken down and then built back up again with mustard ice cream and imperial caviar. And as you can see, it's presented in this lovely stone dish. Now, I have to tell you, I'm not a big fan of oysters, and it was at this course that I suddenly realised I really don't like them. But I felt that I had to eat it because the chef had come over and told us how big a deal it was and how much effort it'd been to create. And so you sort of felt obliged to eat it, even though I didn't really like it. And I can tell you that the people I was with didn't really like it either. So we all made a big effort to eat this, but we didn't really enjoy it. And unfortunately, when we'd already had a lot of different courses before that, I was starting to then feel quite full, and the oyster really wasn't something that I really fancied at that point. But as you can see, the presentation is amazing. And if you like oysters and caviar, then it might be your thing. Next up was lobster. But as you can see, it doesn't look like lobster. This was lobster with exo sauce, eggplants, and paprika. And it had been chopped up and then reconstituted into this amazing dish. And once again, this is quite small. You could pick that up and bite it, but very, very rich. You can see from the sauce just how rich it is. It was packed with flavor. I think the sauce had been made using prawns, which have been chopped up, and a variety of other things. So really rich, really flavorsome, really tasty. But after the oyster that we just had, I wasn't really in the mood for lobster either. So by this stage, we were how many courses? 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8. This was the 8th course, and I was starting to feel a little bit full. Now, alongside the oyster, we also had the lobster, we had this caviar, which was presented in this fantastic lobster-shaped wafer. But I'm not a big fan of caviar. Maybe if you love caviar, this would be your dream meal. But coming halfway through the menu, I would have been quite happy having a bit more bread rather than caviar and lobster at this stage. But as I said, you didn't get a choice. You just got what you were given. And so the presentation was amazing. And I'm sure if you're a foodie that loves these sorts of things, you'd be blown away by just how good this is. I mean, it is fantastic. This is how you get 2 Michelin stars with this sort of presentation. And the quality of the service, as I've said, was amazing. We had 5 or 6 different waiters that were constantly attending to the table, talking us through each of the dishes. They would be pouring your water and wine and giving you more things, anything that you wanted. The next course was skate fish with barnacles and parsley. With some rice. You can see the barnacles, which normally you would see attached to the outside of a boat in a marina if it hadn't been cleaned very well. Well, this restaurant was actually serving barnacles, and you can see that they've been fantastically laid out. The presentation here is off the scale. It does look amazing. And the skate did taste nice. I don't know if you've ever had skate, but it just comes off the bone really easily. There's no bones in this, but if you have it on the bone, this was an amazing dish. But it was 3 fish dishes in a row, which I felt was a little bit too much fish. I would have been quite happy with just 1 fish course, but off the back of the oyster and the lobster, we then had skate. And so I think me and my party were quite looking forward to having something that wasn't fish on the next course. Now, in between courses, you're given a variety of different things. And because we had 3 different themes, we were given 3 different napkins. So after each 3 or 4 courses, you'd be getting a new napkin. And this one was taking us into the Far East. So you can see that we have a sumo wrestler and a Japanese-style geisha girl on both sides of this napkin, which was quite fun, quite funky. Just added a little bit more extra to the night. The next course was called One Night in Bangkok, which was scallop prawn, kampot pepper, and kelp seaweed. So this was the 4th consecutive fish dish that we had, which, as I said, I'd already had enough fish by this point, but you don't get to choose, you just get what you're given. I guess you could have the vegan menu. There was a vegan alternative or vegetarian alternative. So at this point, I was sort of wishing that I'd gone for that. But once again, this was fantastically presented. Really, really lovely food. Really amazing in terms of all the different textures and flavors. And there was a really big prawn. I mean, it was a gigantic prawn that they'd served here that had been sliced into 3 different sections. But for me, I was looking forward to having something that wasn't fish. And unfortunately, I got given some prawn. But if you love prawns and you love lobster and oysters and skate, then this would have been your dream menu. But for me, I was looking forward to moving on to something that wasn't very fishy. The next dish was ocean kimchi, which was actually Iberian pork, fermented pak choy, and violet shrimp. And once again, the presentation here was outstanding. This looks like something out of an art gallery. Really quite incredible. And you can see that there was a sort of fake egg that had been created here. It looks like a genuine soft-boiled egg, but it wasn't. That was what had been made out of all of the the pork and the shrimp and the sauce. Just an incredible feat. But you can see the pork. There's a big piece of pork at the bottom as well. Really quite amazing. And just to keep you up to date, this was the 11th course. So we still had another 4 to go. The next course was purple curry, which was maize and duck, raspberries, beetroot, and black walnuts. And once again, here you can see the amazing presentation. And the piece that's standing up that has ocean stamped on top of it was actually some foie gras, so some pate type duck presentation. So that was soft. When you pressed it, it mushed down. I think you can see the richness of this food. Just looking at the sauce itself, you can see how thick it is. And I think this duck had been cooked for many hours in this sauce. So very flavoursome, very tasty, quite fruity, as well as being quite gamey and rich. But as we were up to course 12, me and my party were feeling quite full by this stage. We'd had a lot of food, a lot of rich food, and so we were looking forward to moving on to the 3 desserts. The first of the desserts was pineapple, and as you can see, the pineapple itself had been carved into a rose design. But before we get onto that, we also had a side serving of a shot. So you can see that there was a meringue around the top of the glass. So that was edible, really tasty, really nice. And then we had a drink that had been made of pineapple, aloe vera, and sunflower seeds. So the concept here was to just down that in one, like you would with a tequila shot. There was no alcohol in it. It was just a sweet. So it tasted really flavoursome. And then it was on to the main dessert itself, which the presentation was off the scale, amazing. And it seemed a shame to eat it because it just looked so good. But it did taste really, really nice. And this was made from a baby pineapple, a very small version of a pineapple, which I think is unique to Portugal. So the artistry here, incredible. The flavours, amazing. It tasted great. And this was course 13 out of 15, so only 2 to go. The second dessert, which was the 14th course of the night, was actually goat's cheese with clear rhubarb essence and red sumac. So you can see here the white balls. One of them was white chocolate and one of them was goat's cheese. And they've both been cooled down, so they had the sort of consistency of ice cream. But it was really quite incredible. And the big white disc at the bottom that's sitting on the red sauce was also goat's cheese. So the flavour here was a really weird combination of ice cream and cheese, which is not something I'd ever had before. I found it to be a little bit strange. The people in my party thought that it was nice. They really liked it and said that they wanted more goat's cheese. For me, I would have been happy to have it without the goat's cheese, even though the goat's cheese was the main ingredient of the dish. For me, I'd rather have either ice cream or goat's cheese, but not really both together. The 15th and final dish of the evening was petit fours, and this was called Childhood Memories. So the chef had grown up using his Game Boy a lot, and he'd eaten a lot of Oreos. So we had these plastic presentations of a Game Boy and a giant Oreo, which were amazing, and they were illuminated. And then you can see that on this, we had some figures from his gaming days. So we've got from the Mario Kart games, we've got Mario or Luigi here, and this was a sort of ice cream that was just incredibly flavoursome. It was made from flavoured by watermelon and cucumber. So again, an interesting combination of flavours, a sort of sweet ice creamy type concept, but with sort of vegetable type flavours. Really quite nice. But you can see the design and the attention to detail here is really impressive. So it seemed a shame to eat it really because it looked so good. But I did eat it and it was nice. But it was the 15th course that I'd had. So by this stage, we were sort of hoping to just get finished and be able to go home because we really had too much food and they just kept bringing us more and more food. And you can see that on the Oreo, we had 2 other items. They're both the square on the right was watermelon, which had sort of been frozen into a sorbet. Really very powerful taste, really nice. And then there was this cup that had been made that again was sort of slightly cold frozen sorbet style Really nice, hard to describe the flavour. You can see that it's got some fruit on there. Everything's edible, so even the sticks were made of chocolate. So the food was incredible. As you can see, the presentation was amazing. 15 courses is a lot of food to get through, even if you're presented with the finest food in the world. There comes a point when you just don't want to keep eating it. And I would say at some point between course 8 and 15, we hit that wall. So what's my overall impression of Ocean Restaurant? Is it the best restaurant in Portugal? Is it the best restaurant I've ever been to? Well, I'm filming this the following day because the meal that we had, it started at 8 p.m. but we never finished until 11:30 because we had to get through all 15 of those courses. Now, individually, every single one of those courses was amazing. It was incredible. It was artistry. The food, the way it was put together, the way it was presented, the story behind it and the explanation, all absolutely first class. And the service in this restaurant is absolutely incredible. We spoke to the waiter and there were 18 people working in the kitchen. There are only 30 covers, so there's only 30 people eating at the restaurant yesterday. But 18 people working in the kitchen and around another 18 were working front of house. So every time they brought out the courses, there would be 4 or 5 people coming along. They'd be holding out all the dishes. They would then put all of the plates down simultaneously. They'd coordinate that. Just an incredible attention to detail the whole time. That's how you get 2 Michelin stars. It's not easy to come by, and this place has been smashing it since 2011. So in terms of my overall assessment of the food, it was amazing. Probably the best sequence of food I've ever had in my life. In terms of the atmosphere, it was good. There was some music, so quite often in these Michelin style places, there isn't any music. It can be a little bit staid and a bit formal, and you feel like you have to be on your best behaviour. It wasn't like that at all, and all of the staff were incredibly friendly and happy and cheerful, and so it was a really joyous meal, really fun. The only downsides really that I could say about it were that firstly, it was incredibly expensive, so not surprisingly, because it's one of the best restaurants, not just in Portugal, but in the world. So you're going to have to pay for that. So I didn't really have a problem with the price. But 15 courses, I have to say, is a little bit too many for me. I've been to these sorts of things where it's been 5 or 7, and I've come out feeling incredibly full because it's very rich food. You know, they don't hold back in terms of doing anything light or holding back on fat or sugar or anything that you would normally cut back on maybe at home if you were cooking yourself. So quite often you come out of these things thinking, oh, that was fantastic, but I do feel like a lie down. After 15 courses, we were in bits. We were absolutely full to the brim. And I have to say that by course 7 or 8, we were still looking at the menu thinking, oh no, there's another 7 courses to go here. But again, I can't fault the food. It was incredible. If you have the opportunity to come to Portugal, to the Algarve, and visit this restaurant, I would definitely recommend it. It's probably a once in a lifetime thing. I don't think you would come back and have another 15 courses because it's just too much. But as a special treat, just if you want to do some special occasion, you want to come somewhere that is amazing, that will blow you away, that is totally incredible, like nothing else that you've ever eaten in your life in terms of the quality, the presentation, and just all the imagination that goes into all of these dishes, then this is definitely the place to be. So I would say my overall assessment of the Ocean in Portugal is I feel that it is the best restaurant in Portugal. It's one of the best restaurants in Europe, and I think it's potentially one of the best restaurants in the world. It doesn't have 3 Michelin stars. I don't exactly know how you get the 3rd star. I think it's to do with service and all of those sorts of things. I was very happy with the level of service here. I wouldn't have wanted anything more formal and people sort of pulling my chair out and putting napkins onto my lap and all of those sort of things that you quite often get in the really high-end restaurants, because you sort of feel that you're not very comfortable in that environment in some situations. I was very comfortable in here. We had a great time. It was an amazing meal. If you get the chance to come here, do so. But this was a fantastic night out, and I can't recommend Ocean highly enough.